Welcome to the regularly scheduled open meeting of the DOA group of Alcoholics Anonymous, 11 p.m. EST. My name is Marty, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm your chair for tonight. Let us open the meeting with a moment of silence for the sick and suffering alcoholic, followed by the Serenity prayer for those who know and care to join. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I will now read How It Works. Chapter 5. How It Works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose, in a general way, what used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have, and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless, thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil, till we let go absolutely. Here, alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Their lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct mention to people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us, and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Don't be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, a chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A. That we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B. That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C. That God could and would if He were sought. Oh, thanks to all who listened. If you would like to share, please raise your hand and I will call on you. I'm now going to set up the audio Grapevine meeting.
Welcome to the January 2011 issue of Grapevine magazine. We start with a note from the managing editor.
At what point did you admit you were powerless over alcohol? According to Bill W., writing in the March 1960 AA Grapevine, this simply means that all of us have to hit bottom and hit it hard and lastingly. That bottom comes in many forms, and the essays in this month's special section are particularly poignant accounts of powerlessness. In The young female author of Puppet of Destruction writes, ironically, my bottom was not when I lost my apartment, my job, my boyfriend, or the respect of my family, and goes on to share that her complete emptiness of all emotion brought her to step one. These and other stories like these remind us that while the road to admitting powerlessness may be rough, the key to recovery can be as simple as learning to be normal. Service takes many forms, and sending your stories and art to AA Grapevine is one of them. We are now accepting submissions for the 2012 AA Grapevine Wall Calendar Photo Contest. Get someone's day started right with an inspiring image. Learn more in this issue, or visit aagrapevine.org. In fellowship, the managing editor, me@aagrapevine.org.
Newcomers Hot Fudge Sobriety. The road back to normal is not always straight.
If you take a small, precious living creature and make a home for it in a bowl of alcohol and drugs, eventually it will not know much about anything. If the creature spends a lifetime in the bowl, and a moment of divine intervention plucks it out, it is a lucky start, but there is no reversal to normal. There is only learning everything for the very first time. I was stark raving sober my first year. Every minute of every day of the first 365 days was a brand new experience. It was like being a newborn, the first birthday, the first Mother's Day, the first shower, all the anniversary grief. Writing the first letter without a glass of wine in hand were as foreign to me as walking on the moon. I did not know I could have died from the withdrawal of all the alcohol I had been consuming, and that had been consuming me. I really didn't see myself as that bad. The shaking and spasms of withdrawal knocked me to consciousness, and the woman who said she was my sponsor at my first meeting promised me that if I just didn't pick up one drink for one day, I would never have to go through this again. I called her on the phone about 6 times a day. She worked in a very quiet carpet store and had the time to speak to me and soothe me through the next hour until she got off work and could pick me up for the meeting. I had taken a leave of absence from my job as an executive, where I was in over my head. I didn't want her boring life, but I surely wanted what she had, whatever it was. There was not a chance I could identify it. She reached out from the lifeboat of sobriety and pulled me up from the bottom of the ocean. I was so crazed that she had been advised to stay away from me so she would not get drunk. Thank God she didn't listen to that advice. I asked her if everyone went through this. She smiled and said in her broken English, "Don't worry about them. You can do it. They all did it already, and don't think about them. You only have to do this once, just for today, just for a few more hours." She was an escapee from East Germany, the perfect hardcore kind of woman I needed for my excruciating journey into sobriety. She knew me much better than I knew myself. She told me that the worst drunk in the world could stay sober for one day. I laughed at that, as she knew I did not see myself as such. But as time went on, that one day got very long, and I was shocked to find out how really bad I was. I could not find the place called normal. Even just the basics took time. I did not know when or what to eat. She told me there was lots of sugar in alcohol, and that I should have some honey or something sweet around all the time, because the cravings I had could simply be for sugar. What I was shaking for was definitely not a chocolate bar, but I was willing to listen to anything. I had a heavy coat, as it was March in New York, and I kept 2 short rolls of chocolate chip cookies in large pockets. I went to 2 meetings a day, and to a diner after meetings at night. It was a central location for after-meeting fellowship from 5 towns. If no one was there, you just waited. Someone always showed up, day or night. I ate a hot fudge sundae every night for the first year. I figured I would rather be fat than dead. Eventually, my sponsor talked me into more balanced food groups. I could not sleep and was told, "Nobody ever died from lack of sleep." Like so many of the things I heard, all I could think of was, what the hell does that mean? It meant that being awake would not hurt me, watching TV would not kill me, but drinking would. I was told that most people have trouble sleeping when they get sober because the whole central nervous system is shot and needs time to figure out how to get to normal. Nothing just happens when you stop drinking. It's all a process, not an event. I looked for the people who stayed up all night after the diner closed. Some people were still nightbirds and available to babysit newcomers. I would talk to Pete the plumber until 3 a.m., when I thought I might be able to try to fall asleep. He would have stayed on the phone with me until the cows came home. He gave me my first big book at 90 days, and it simply read, "Thank you, Pete the plumber." I had no idea what he was thanking me for. That book is one of my most valuable possessions today. I heard first things first and thought, how do I know what is first? Who do I ask? I lived alone and didn't even know how often you were supposed to change the sheets. All boundaries, all rules, and all common sense were completely blurry. I am now sober more than half my life, and although I have the basics down, I still have to ask a sponsor what normal is. If you never had a starting point of normal, how are you supposed to know? I have had a spiritual awakening as a result of taking the 12 steps, and my life revolves around my sobriety and my program. However, it is a daily reprieve. The story is not over yet, and fortunately, I have lots more to learn. I have found for sure that in the moments that you know what normal is and ones you don't, no matter what stage of sobriety you are at, even if your sponsor is not around, God will meet you anywhere. Snow P., Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Airport Security.
April 15th, 2010 was a great day for my family and me. We just did not know it at the time. Tax day does not seem to be a great day for anything, but this tax day was the beginning of my new life. After several attempts at sobriety and several periods of long-term sobriety followed by failure, I had given up. My brother, Paul, an active member in our fellowship for 23 years, recommended an extended stay treatment center in Tennessee. What did I have to lose? I could always go back to my misery. It would be waiting. My wife and I made a 3.5-hour trip to the Denver airport for my morning flight to Knoxville. My wife dropped me off. I ran to check in and just missed my flight. I went to the smoking bar in the airport. The next flight did not leave until 4 p.m. It was 10 a.m. After my 4th cigarette and 2nd beer, I knew I would never get on the plane without help. Soon I would be too drunk. I called on the courtesy phone and asked them to page Friends of Bill W. You guys came through, thank God. First there was Mickey, a lady from New York City, then a lady from India, and then John, an airline worker. We all had coffee. Everyone's flight was scheduled to leave before mine. Mickey, God bless her, changed her flight and watched me get on mine. I'm flying home to Nebraska tomorrow morning with 80 days of sobriety. Today I am sober. I have a sponsor back home. He got sober in 1967. I go to a lot of meetings, sometimes 3 a day, many days just 1, but I always go. Thank you for being there for me when I cannot be there for myself. My wife is picking me up at the airport tomorrow, all because of a new way of life through AA. John K., Scottsbluff, Nebraska.
Youth enjoying sobriety. Young, drunk, and broke. Sleeping in a dumpster was just the beginning of the end.
I grew up in a family environment that was riddled with both alcoholism and drug addiction. As far back in my memory that I can go, I remember my mom or some other parental figure drinking or using some type of drugs. By the age of 12, drinking alcohol was something everyone did everywhere, all the time. This was also when my mom decided she needed help and went to AA. She often took me along with her while she attended meetings, and I hung out playing pool in the room below the meeting. By age 15, I was attending Alateen on a regular basis, and by 17 was going on and off to AA for myself. I ended up in a treatment facility after overdosing on drugs and drinking a massive amount of hard liquor. My stay in that facility was my first real attempt to stay sober, though I was not completely convinced I had a serious problem, and I found sobriety fleeting at best. I relapsed one more time, and this time I found myself in even more serious trouble. I was arrested with a case of cheap beer and a lot of illegal drugs. It turned out that the arresting officer knew my family, who by now lived in another state, and convinced my parents to take me in one last time, on the condition that I stay sober when I arrived. I agreed and drove to the city where my parents were living, ready to start my new life in AA. I attended an AA meeting there that day, only to find the members were all at least 30 years my senior. I was 18 years old, in a retirement community, trying to get sober. I used the "I am too young" excuse, and in a short time found myself on the streets again. This time everything was different. I found I no longer had any control whatsoever. I couldn't stop for any reason. This relapse lasted for about 7 months, and in that time I hit the bottom of the barrel. I ended up staying in a dumpster behind a fast food restaurant because I couldn't afford a hotel room. Even at this level, I didn't believe AA would work for me. After all, I'd been in and out of AA for the last few years. AA didn't work for people like me, people my age. Then, one day I had a very different thought shoot through my mind. If I didn't stop drinking, I was going to die. It didn't matter if AA worked or not. I needed help. So I decided to give AA meetings one last shot. I got a hotel room and stayed sober for the next few days. One evening, all the street friends I had showed up at my door and brought drinks and drugs. That night, I couldn't get drunk or loaded no matter how much I put in my body. I told my friends it would be the last time I ever drank with them, and asked them all to leave and not come back. That was January 7th, 1982, the day that turned out to be my sobriety date. I had just turned 19. When I walked into the AA meeting place again, the same old people were there and they all welcomed me back. I sat just long enough to hear the beginning of Chapter 5 of the Big Book. It was like someone had hit me on the head with a club. Every word applied to me. That was almost 29 years ago now, and Chapter 5 still has the same impact today. Being sober in 1982 at 19 was such a very lonely experience. It's almost hard to describe. Everyone I met my age was in the midst of the wildlife. In my entire city, there were only 3 other AA members under 21, and none of us liked each other. When I faced problems in AA and asked other members for help, they would just look at me and tell me, "When I was your age, I was drunk. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to figure it out yourself." Well, I did, often with horrible results. I often share that I've made all the same mistakes any other person has made, either in AA or not. Only I couldn't say, "Yeah, I did that, but I was drunk when I did it." I had to admit that I had made those same mistakes sober, and had to stand up and be accountable for my actions later. I found it was all just a part of growing up, only I grew up in AA, literally. I stayed through the end of my teens, through my 20s, through my 30s, and now through most of my 40s. I didn't just read the 12 steps, 12 traditions, and 12 concepts. I have made them a part of my life and learned to live their principles. My life today is absolutely incredible. Because I got sober so young, I'm able to reach just about any young person who walks into AA and let them know that AA will work at their age, that alcohol doesn't see age, sex, or heritage. It's an equal opportunity destroyer. I usually direct them to the local young people in AA meetings, and also try getting them involved in our local Young People's Committee, which supports other larger state young people's conferences. In California, it's ACIPA, which stands for All California Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous, something that I had the privilege to chair here in 1999. 2 years ago, our area was awarded the ACIPA conference again, and with an entirely new group of young people running it, became the largest ACIPA conference to date. I've literally watched a fellowship rise around me. Today, there are several thousand young people members in this state alone, something I never dreamed I would see. Today, I'm a part of a growing number of once young people in AA who have stayed sober for many years and found a life and lifestyle that is so far beyond anything I could have ever hoped to have all those years ago when I stumbled back into AA for the last time. Jamie L., Oceanside, California.
If you would like to share on topic or whatever is on your heart, or anything that is helping you in your sobriety, please raise your hand and I will call on you.